Another day. 20th of September today. Half of the sky is blue, but there's more cloud than what I thought, and it's breezy. But you never know. Back to Eakring to see whether there's any Red Admirals moving through. And while I walk up there, you can look at this. A nice view of Loundwood. The little annex of Loundwood just to the left. There's remnants of some very old oaks, large oaks in Loundwood. At one time, most of it was cut down and then replanted. So all the trees are about the same age, with a few exceptions. The sun's breaking through. There's been more cloud. I left Warsaw in blue sky, and it got progressively more cloudy as I came over here. The intention is to check on Red Admiral migration, of course, because it's a worthwhile thing doing in September. The variety of insects is less, so there's not so much to spend hours looking for, and the period of butterfly migration is limited to a few weeks, and the right conditions and relying on the butterflies to be there. They're what are required. But at the moment, I think it might be a quiet day, but we may get a few birds going through. I've dusted off the old binoculars again. And it's the old adage, if you don't go out and look, you don't see and you don't find out. Can't always rely on the internet to tell you what's happening. The best way is to get out there and find out for yourself. A slightly different view of proceedings. Although it's still early days and there aren't any proceedings at the moment. There's been this cloud that sort of developed. It's nothing to do with the front that's over the southeast of the UK. It's almost just developed. So that's keeping the temperature down. But it is clearing now, as you can see. And I've just dropped a little bit. I'm trying to find somewhere where it's not quite so breezy, because it's certainly breezier of the 3 visits here recording Red Admirals on migration. But we need some sun to get things going. It's now approaching 5 to 10, and I don't expect any Red Admirals going through just yet, but there's no birds going through either. This time in September you'd be looking at flocks of swallows streaming through, meadowpipits coming through higher up. There's nothing. But hopefully we may get a trickle of Red Admirals at least. Time will tell. I would imagine, if there is to be any movement today, this breeze, the butterflies, they may well be flying across the breeze It's meant to be northwesterly, but it seems more northerly to me, so they could be going straight south if any do go through, or if it is northwesterly, then southwesterly would be the direction. But I would imagine they're only just becoming active anyway now, and will probably feed before setting off. We shall see. Nothing might happen at all. That's one thing we have to bear in mind. But at least it's another nice day. Well, 10:18, the first Red Admiral has gone through southwest. So that may well be a start. May well be the start of very little. We shall see. But clear blue sky now. The cloud that there was around has slowly drifted south. It's just starting to warm up. So it's a case of wait and see what happens. "10:30, nearly an hour up, just one Red Admiral. There's a trickle, bird-wise, of meadow pipits. Always used to hate days like this though. There's a group of some house martins just going at the back of those trees. Days like this, although very nice to be out in, were terrible for visible migration, because birds in conditions like this would be high up and almost impossible to pick out against a clear blue sky. So as this first hour comes towards an end, we'll see if it picks up in the next hour. A good old bit of hedgerow. An old hedgerow, but it was thickened up with new plants, well, over 10 years ago, and it's made a decent hedge. Let's hope some Red Admirals start hopping over it. I'm just recording this adult dock bug, which is actually on dock. And there's at least 3 here, and there's just 4 ravens have just gone over. They've not gone far. That's probably about the 2nd or 3rd record for Eakring. There's dock bug, and now widespread. I remember first seeing these for the first time on a survey we did at Dartford a number of years ago, taking photographs and being delighted, and knowing that they were moving north at the time. They weren't in Nottinghamshire at the time, but like so many things, they appeared in Nottinghamshire a few years ago and have gone absolutely balmy. And they're everywhere now. Most sort of rough hedgerows, any sort of rough places where dock grows, but they're not confined to dock. And you'll get them on bramble and all sorts of rank vegetation. I've not seen that kind of habit doing that sort of shaking, that wobbling. So there's at least 3 on here that I can see, I found, but I dare say there's a lot more. So another newcomer, now well established. There's a hornet knocking around, but there's one raven going over. And the second one just drifting sort of south. Not an unusual sight in Nottinghamshire now, raven. One time it was. Well, that's a nice view, isn't it? Looking over towards the A614 south of Rufford. Can see the old headstocks of the former Clipston Colliery. And plenty of clover in this meadowland after it was cut a month or so ago. Plenty of regrowth. Just a shame it wasn't a good clouded yellow year. May well get one on here. Another migratory butterfly. Had one through here one year, and it was a while ago. Recorded cloudy yellow 3 times, actually moving through the Eakring area. Would you a good clouded yellow year? A lovely butterfly. A lovely butterfly and a lovely view. But the hoped for Red Admiral migration hasn't materialised. So maybe a change of plan or a change of sites in order. Bit of a different view. Just having a bit of a drive around, but the clump of trees on the horizon, just to the right of that, where I've been standing. No migration from Red Admirals so far. Thoresby, the brown area on the skyline, is Thoresby Pit Top. And then you're looking over towards the rest of Sherwood Forest. It's a good view from here. This is the western approach to Eakring. If you're coming up from the A614 or from Billsthorpe, this is the way you come in. It's a nice little village, spoilt by new builds to a degree, but hasn't every village, to be honest. And the eastern approach to the village, this sort of area is relatively untouched at the moment. And we're going to go up there. We're going to turn left onto the main street. And a lovely village church. 2 entrances, strangely enough. One this side, one the other side. This one isn't used on this side. And these are the older graves of long dead residents. It's a good cemetery for wildlife. We swing round. Plenty of ivy. And a chiff-chaff knocking about. And the ivy now is absolutely full of insects. And this really shows you the value of ivy as a nectar source. There are hundreds of honeybees on here, and dozens, if not 100 or so, Aristolis pertinax hoverflies. There's all the hoverflies have we got? Myothropa florea, Aristolis albistorum. No butterflies, strangely. I'd have thought we might have dragged a Red Admiral on here. But this bush hums. Just listen to that. It's like being inside a hive. And I'll have a look in a minute. Last time I was here, a couple of years ago, I think it would be now. Well, it might have been this time last year. And there is, or there was, a honeybee nest in the walls of the church. A couple of speckled woods knocking around and a small white. But a hive of activity. And the sound of summer. Just in front of the church, there's a little bit of a sheltered and shaded garden with lots of leaf mould and bark chippings, which is giving home or providing the right conditions for this fabulous coral fungi. And there are dozens of clumps of this. And these are big clumps. That's about the size of 2 tennis balls. But there are more tucked in there. And an even bigger clump just here. All tucked away in the shade of the village green. Here in the centre of Eakring, there's an open field. It's hedged in, but it's still occasionally grazed by a handful of sheep. Always has been, ever since I've been coming to Eakring, since 1997. On one side of the field, there's the remnants of an old orchard. The trees are very, very old and still fruiting. But the centrepiece of it is this magnificent lime tree that has been in full flower. Absolutely beautiful thing. We'll see this probably from the other side. But as we pan around, that's the way we're going. Further up into the village. There's no shops here now. There used to be a lovely village post office and shop which sold the most fantastic cheese. There's another view of the field. I don't know whether it has some archaeological significance, I don't think so. But you can see the old orchard there and there, the lime tree. Church on your right hand side. A couple of horses in the field now. It used to be sheep in my day. And this is looking south out of the village, looking up towards Duke's Wood and the National Grid training place. If you like your pylons, this is the place to come. But I'm not going up that far. I'll come back into the village and see if there's anywhere left, or anything left, of a little triple SI that there used to be. Well, there's 50% good news, 50% bad news. There is still half of the little triple SI. It's still here anyway, so that's something. It's not had anything. There used to be a horse and there used to be a white pony in here sort of many years ago. It used to fart continuously, but I don't think anything's grazed it since that died. And now it used to be full of fabulous flowers and orchids, but with the hawthorn scrub at the back and this hedgerow on your right hand side, this used to be the best place in Eakring area for turtle dove. I dare say they don't come back anymore because they slowly declined while I were bird watching in the place. But I did say 50% good news, 50% bad news. And 50% bad news is that it was more overgrown, the area on the right hand side here. But it's not overgrown anymore because it's got a bungalow on it and a house. I suppose that's what they call progress. Not in my book. This is back lane. Runs back to the centre of the village. I'm going to cut up just on the left here, up this twitchell, and I'll see if we can find anything of Montpesson's Cross and Eakring's connection with the plague. Didn't know about that, did you? Oh, on the edge, the western edge of Eakring now, and here we are at Montpesson's Cross. There's a bit more woodwork here since I last came. So I hope it's not too dark to see it because it's just in amongst these trees. And here is Montpesson's Cross. I seem to think that at one time it was a metal cross, but I don't know. And it stands on the edge, the western edge of the village, on Stonish Hill, near the turbines. If you know Eakring at all, and I'll let you read what it says at the bottom. It's a bit difficult to read, but it says near this spot stood pulpit ash, which I'm presuming was the remnants of an ash tree, where Montpesson preached on coming to Eakring as rector in 1670 AD. That's just a few years before my time, after leaving Ireham in Derbyshire, which had been decimated by the plague. It's quite a famous story, but it's yet again in Nottinghamshire. Apart from Robin Hood, we're piss poor at publishing our other history. And once again, like the Vikings in Sherwood, this is real history. This happened. Now at the side of Montpesson's cross, there's a bit of history. There's a plaque or a notice board. And Montpesson, he lived from 1639 to 1709. He was Yorkshire born, and he arrived at Eakring in 1670 from Ireham in Derbyshire, where he officiated as rector 4 years earlier during an epidemic of bubonic plague. Makes COVID look a bit pathetic. Montpesson, by his example and leadership of the community, had prevented the spread of the disease to a wider area, but at the cost of 259 deaths amongst his flock, including that of his first wife, Catherine. Thus, he had earned the title Hero of the Plague. The story arose that when Montpesson, accompanied by his new wife Elizabeth, arrived in Eakring, the people feared that he still carried the contagion and barred him from the church and parsonage house. Undeterred, and imitating his practice in plague-ridden Ireham, he continued his ministry by preaching in the open air at Pulpit Ash, on the western edge of Eakring, and lived in humble dwelling in Rufford Park. Although the Rufford story may be dismissed as legend, documentary evidence confirms the site of the open-air pulpit. Whether he used Pulpit Ash because the church was closed to him, or what is more likely because the physical condition of the building made it dangerous for large gatherings, may be argued for a long time. But there's little doubt that the site of the ash is authentic, and the tradition has been transmitted in the village through centuries. The restoration of the memorial cross of 1893 at this traditional site was carried out in 1984 by the Women's Institute of Eakring as a suitable memorial to the heroic rector, whose remains are interred beneath the floor of this church. So there you go, Nottinghamshire's connection with the bubonic plague. I can't remember him though. I can't put a face to the name. They used to say that there used to be 7 pubs in Eakring at one time, but for many years the Savile Arms has been the only one left. We've almost done a circuit now. This lovely village, and the final stretch back to the car. It's been a nice walk. Just met a couple of old villagers that eventually recognised me. All in all, a pleasant stroll around Eakring. And I'm getting thirsty, so you know what that means. It's time to go.